On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, World War I, the Great War, was over. Somewhere on the western front of France was my grandfather, Barry Houston Hogan. World War I was one of the deadliest conflicts in the history of the human race. The total number of civilians and military casualties is estimated to be around 37 million people. 116,708 American soldiers died, and over 204,000 were wounded or disabled, helping to end this conflict. In total, over 4 million Americans were mobilized to help end the war. 2.1 million of them were directly on the Western battlefront. I am grateful to all of those brave Americans and their sacrifices, but still, I wanted to better understand my grandfather's contribution and learn more about his journey from the peaceful piney woods of East Texas to the muddy trenches of eastern France. February 24th, 1917, Britain intercepted, decoded, and then forwarded to the United States a disturbing telegraph known as the Zimmermann Note. This coded telegraph from the German Foreign Secretary instructed the German ambassador of Mexico to offer Mexico a deal. If they would accept their request to enter the war as one of Germany's allies, it would, in return, give them Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona once they took over the United States. Their strategy was that if Mexico could be encouraged to join the German side and declare war on America, the United States, with only the 17th largest army in the world, would be forced to commit a large slice of its military effort in defending its southern border, therefore weakening any attempt for European involvement. On April 6, 1917, America declared war. On April 25th, my grandfather volunteered to join the Army, and he was inducted into the United States military in Palestine, Texas. He was assigned to Company G, the 359th Infantry of the 90th Division of the United States Army, and was sent to Camp Travis in San Antonio, Texas, for training. The regiment initially consisted of draftees from Texas and the newly formed state of Oklahoma, and its division uniform insignia and monograms were the letters TO for Texas, Oklahoma. Later, the division's nickname was changed to the Tough Hombres. Established in 1917 as one of 16 National Army training camps in preparation for the war, the camp occupied 18,290 acres, with over 5,030 acres adjacent to Fort Sam Houston. The site was selected on July 15, 1917, and by August 25th of the same year, it was ready for troops. And by October of 1917, over 31,000 troops from the 90th U.S. Infantry were at the camp in training. After only 52 days of training, On June 20th, 1918, the entire division left San Antonio on train to travel to Long Island, New York, for their 2-week voyage to Europe. The journey from America to Europe was a dangerous one. Company G was assigned the troop carrier, the Uduna. German U-boats that had played a major part in bringing America into the conflict patrolled the Atlantic with the goal of preventing the American soldiers from ever reaching the continent. Remarkably, not a single transport carrier carrying American soldiers was lost at sea during the war. On July 2nd, the Uduna landed in Liverpool, England. They were met by crowds of grateful British people, and on July 4th, the mayor of the town presented them with a parade and a picnic. After a short rest in England, the troops ferried across the English Channel to the port of Cherbourg, France, for final training and to begin their journey to the front lines of battle. What happened to Grandpa while on the front isn't really clear. It's not something he ever talked about with me. We know from history that it was a miserable time. Over 80 days of continuous fighting. He was exposed to gas and other elements that ended up causing a lifetime of disability. A disability that was never formally acknowledged or ever compensated for. When my mother passed away, I looked closely at this photo of Grandpa and his Company G, taken in San Antonio while training before leaving for the front. Inscribed on the bottom of the photo, it says, St. Mihiel Offensive, September 12th through 16th, 1918. Historically, we know that this is one of the most important strategic battles that helped end the war. In less than 2 months, the war would be over. What these young men experienced and saw during their year and 4 days is well documented in history and on film. The only thing my grandfather told me about it was he sure loved playing baseball when he was in training camp. On June 7th, Grandpa and his troop were put on a ship carrier and returned to the United States. They were put on a train and sent to Fort Worth to Camp Bowie for demobilization. On June 24th, 1919, he was discharged and was sent home. Shortly after returning to Texas, Grandpa married Ada Jones, my grandmother. Grandma always said that after returning from the war, he was never quite the same. Early in their marriage, doctors told her that she would have to take care of her husband for the rest of his life. On several occasions, Grandpa would get so sick that the family didn't even know if he would survive the night. Grandma and Grandpa raised 6 remarkable children, one of them, my mother, Betty Jean, on a single salary of a rural letter carrier. They lived a Christ-filled life and a peaceful life in Augusta, Texas, living mostly on the vegetables and fruit they grew in their gardens and off the abundant wildlife and fish from the piney woods. The impact that this experience had on his life and the life of his family is immeasurable. The sacrifices he made as the other 4 million Americans in World War I made, and the millions since, should never be forgotten. It should never be taken for granted.